Okay, Matt knows the drill. I'm going to ask you guys to do 4 things while you're here. 4 things, that's all, just 4.5 things. And Matt guaranteed me that he'd lock the doors and no one could leave if you didn't do these 4 things, so it'll just go better for everyone if you just do it quickly. So, first one is a pop quiz. And if you know the answer to this one, if you know my answer to this one, then don't say it till after I'm done. Don't give it away. And this is one of the 4.5 things. I'm going to have you discuss this for just a second with someone next to you. Which do you think is better? For someone to actually say that the company kicks ass or that the product kicks ass? Or if you wrote a book, do you want people to say the book was great or the author was great? Or if you're a blogger, do you want someone to say it's a great blog or awesome blogger? So I'm going to give you just a moment, but I have a lot of patience, so discuss that with the person next to you and see if you can figure it out. Which do you think is better? Company is good or the product is good? So if you were reading a review or a testimonial, what would be better? And the correct answer to this actually is a predictor of success for things that people are passionate about. I know too many of you know the answer to this. It's secret answer C. It's when the user is talking about themselves. So the best testimonials, the best book reviews, the best blog reviews, or you want someone saying, I kick ass as a result of whatever it was I learned here. So people raving about the company or the product, none of that matters. The only thing that matters is themselves. So it's all about the user kicking ass. Now, think for a second. This is the second thing I'm going to ask you to do, about something that you always wanted to be really, really good at. Like, I'm sure there's something that you're already really good at, but think about something that you wanted to be really good at, and it was possible, like there wasn't some, law of physics that would be violated for you to do this, but it just didn't happen. You just didn't work at it hard enough, you didn't practice, you just never pursued it. Think about what that thing is. So this is the second thing I'm going to ask you to do, is just tell the person next to you something, and there's a point to it, something that you thought you wanted to be really good at and it just didn't happen. Okay, go ahead. We'll wait. I'll just start quizzing you individually if you don't answer. Yeah, it doesn't have to be anything to do with work. Something. Could be sports, could be music. Okay, how many people want to be better at music in some way? Something. Oh, okay, big one. Music, or now it's, now that the Olympics are on, we get our little sports enthusiasm. So, that thing that you really wanted to be good at, if someone was able to tell you, I can actually help you be really good at that. You could be really good at that. Imagine how that would make you feel, and imagine how we can make our users feel. So we're going to talk about this. So the thing that makes people want to be really good at something, and why people like being passionate about something and pursue something, is because they have a higher resolution experience when they're good at something. So people who understand jazz or classical music or rap music, they're able to hear things in the music that the rest of us can't hear. They can hear more notes. They can perceive more things than we can. This is Kevin climbing up the inside of a building. This is Tontek scaring the crap out of all the people who were looking, and he does this. And one of the things that Tontek said to me not too long ago is that he does see things differently as a result of learning how to climb. And he specifically does bouldering and buildering inside buildings, but he actually looks at structures and sees things differently. So for him, even just real life, just walking around is a higher resolution experience for him as a result of getting better and better and learning more and more about climbing. So we like getting really good at stuff because it gives us that experience. This was me a long time ago, and I waited, it takes about 25 years for things to come back in, including that old school skateboard. So, but at the age of 48, just very recently, I decided that I always wanted to be really good at horseback riding. So now I've taken that up as a big pursuit. The reason why we're not passionate about stuff that we're not really good at is we tend not to be passionate about stuff we suck at. So this chart, I know some of you have seen this to death. This is the most important set of milestones on the way to having passionate users. So think about, what does it take for a user to get up that curve? Now, all things being equal, he who gets his users up that curve more quickly will win. But the lame thing I did with this chart is that bad curve is actually really good, because look how far the person gets. They just don't get there as quickly as their competitor. But most people just kind of never get past the suck threshold. So the suck threshold is just saying, well, I no longer suck. And if we can't get people past that threshold, we sure as hell aren't going to get them to be passionate about something. So we have to think about that. Now, Matt, you were talking a lot. Is Matt in here somewhere? You were talking a lot about upgrades and the importance of upgrades and all those upgrades. And, and you used language like, it's good that you're thinking about it, and you used language like, well, it's not that hard to upgrade. So, but here's the reason why people don't want to upgrade. Because they worked so hard to claw their way above the suck threshold, and you're asking them to go back there again, even just for a moment. And it's just a terrible feeling. And I wrote something about this the other day on Twitter, which I can't believe that's coming out of my mouth. And so I tweeted, and and someone said, well, when you have to upgrade, it's a sense of loss. So we really should look at it like the 5 stages of grief. So every time you subject someone to an upgrade, right, it's, denial, anger. I mean, they're losing something that they invested resources in. So we have to take that very seriously. And I think you're right on by enlisting the community to harass/help other users do that. But that suck threshold is so crucial to getting people to upgrade. And we're just talking about getting them past that point. We have to push way past that to get people to actually have a passion. Now, so in the tech world, and I'm a programmer, we tend to focus on our tools. So we think about what we're going to help people get good at. Yeah, I'm going to help people kick ass at this tool. Well, no one cares about our tools. They care about what they can actually do with the tools, what the tool enables. So even the tech people who are doing this well, who are helping someone, get better at something, or actually doing user documentation that makes sense, they're still doing user documentation around the tool. And that's not what people are using our stuff for. This, I know a lot of you have seen this before, because this is one that really says so much to me about what goes wrong with what we do. In this case, it's really extreme, because this at the time was like a $2,000 camera. So this is how we treat people before they give us money, and this is how we treat people after they give us money. So that's totally wrong. But that's actually kind of a distraction, and that's a whole separate point, bait and switch on the relationship. What's interesting here, and it doesn't really have to do with the production quality of the, so my theory is just take the marketing budget and put it all into end user documentation. But anyway, this is about something people want to do. So even if they were both in just black and white and same resolution, that would be fine. The point is that this is about what people want to do. Take really cool, sexy, compelling photographs. This is about becoming an expert at the camera, which almost no one cares about. So we have to think about, what are we helping people get good at? So if we want them to become passionate, people are not going to become passionate about something because they know the tool really well. They're going to become passionate because they're really good at what the tool enables. And that's also what helps them spend a lot more money. So usability is just the prereq. Okay, so now think about that thing you wanted to be good at. There's a whole lot of science right now about how to get really good at something. This is all happening simultaneously to the fact that now that none of us can focus more than 10 seconds at a time. It turns out that not nearly as much of people who are and I mean just one notch below really world class, that most of it is not about natural talent. That actually, let's suppose you wanted to be the guitar player, right? And that's who you wanted to be, that guy over there, but really you were this guy? The difference, it turns out, between you and that guy is practice. That guy just put in more time. So that was the big, stunning scientific find, is that it turns out that the person who's really good at something, and it doesn't matter if it's programming or chess or music or even most athletic things, again, barring, some violation of physics, it's not a matter of anything except their ability to put in the time to actually practice. Now, and there's also very specific ways that people who get really, really kick-ass at something practice. So we're going to think about ways we can help our users do that. So this is actually a neuroscientist, Richard Restak, who's written a lot about this. And he calls it, we need a rage to master. That's the thing they find when they look at people who are really good at something. They did not find some genetic tendency to do the thing they were good at. They found more of a genetic tendency to just go in their room and practice. So, and we have one issue, which is, how many of you are programmers? Right, so if you're going to study music, everyone expects that you'll practice. There is a culture of practice around music and athletics and a lot of other things. Programming, not so much. Yeah, your boss does not say, we should just go in the room, just practice. As a programmer for me, every place I ever worked, from tiny company to big company, practice meant, building prototypes. You were practicing at some particular design, not practicing your skills, just trying to see if you could actually make something work. So think about this, because these are the differences they find. And the more you can push people up that curve, the far better chance you have of getting people who are really passionate about whatever it is. It could just be the thing you're writing about on your blog. So this question, that we're kind of obsessed with, and that VCs, of course, still ask, but what problem do you solve? Well, that's weak, because that does not address this issue that the problem that you're solving, if you focus on you're solving a problem for someone, well, what does that give them when that problem is solved? Why do they want that problem solved? If you step one layer up and say, what is it that problem is a part of? And if you focus your energy up there on nailing that thing that particular problem is a part of, so there are all these competitors in various aspects of software or any kind of product design focusing on solving the customer's problem. Actually, there are a lot of us who are building shit that nobody even knows, what it's for, except we like it. But assuming that you actually have answered that question, well, it's solving this problem, if you're thinking at the level above that of what is this problem a part of that's really compelling for people, it might be a very different answer. And if you focus your resources there, you're helping the user kick ass resources, which could speak to community and how you do the design, a lot of other things. That could change a lot. So, I won't ask you to say this, what is it that you can help your users kick ass at? Or what is it that you do help your users kick ass at? And again, if the answer is your tool, that's the wrong answer. Why are they using your tool? What are they hoping to do? So I'm going to try to do a whirlwind. I'll try to get through all 20. So this is the obvious one I've been talking about. Focus on what the user does, not what you do. And I won't have you actually do this, but this is an exercise that we put our authors through, is thinking about what X is. And every time you have the urge to say, we need to be better at this, this doesn't always work. See if you can rephrase it as, no, how can we help the users be better at X? So for example, instead of saying, we need to build better software, say, how can I help the user build better software? Or instead of creating a better book, I need to make my book better, how can I make a better user of the book, which would be a better reader? Or for me, if I'm helping people learn Java, instead of saying I'm going to build a better Java, I know in this crowd Java's like your grandfather's programming language. I think it's like 13 years old. Sorry. It's denial, anger. Okay. don't build a better Java programming book. I'm trying to build a better Java programmer. That has a profound implication about the kinds of things that I do if I change that response. So think really hard about what are you trying to build. And whenever you have the urge to say it needs to be better at X, say no, the user needs to be better at X, or maybe X and Y and Z. Think about that. Serendipity is really delightful for people. When the iPod Shuffle first came out, and actually, to my horror, it still happens, people really debate about whether it's really random and what does that really mean. And I'm not talking about like programmer discussions about pseudo-randomness. People actually think that possibly it's psychic, or that it somehow is adapting. That it's just a very I mean, if it's not actually psychic, at the very least, they think that it's somehow got some very sophisticated AI, which I'm sure entertains the programmers, about how it's deciding what they need next. But it's because we find these things, we are pattern matching creatures. It's what our brain does. So we find serendipity, and we find things that are, potentially random, and we try to make sense of it, and it's incredibly delightful. So you can exploit that. So add randomness in some way. And if not, all-out randomness, but something that gives them a chance for input from the outside instead of relentlessly focusing on just this thing. Dog-ears design principles, some of you have seen this. When the iPod Touch first came out, many of us who were in the room, of course, we gasped, because we do when you go to a Steve Jobs keynote. We gasped when he moved the interface up and it bounced as it got to the end. And that bounce, so I used to teach animation a long time ago. And one of the things that really first separated amateur animators, and I mean people who were actually just learning animation for the first time, and people who made animations where end users would go, I don't know, I just like that better. I mean, even things like just a logo that slides in from the side. One of the biggest differences was if it had some sort of follow-through. And often it was at a frame rate so subtle that no one even noticed. But it's the fact that it made it feel more alive. And by making our stuff feel more alive, we help the user feel more alive. So of course we see this in documentation, right? How does your documentation read? And does it make the end user feel more alive, or does it feel like, business speak, or even worse, engineer speak? What does it feel like? So think about what that spark, that little spark of life is, and it can just be in 100 million different little tiny subtle ways, but they're very profound. So create joy. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Actually, we saw Liz, although she was talking about something different than I've seen her talking about with frameworks, but Amy Jo Kim, I don't know if some of you I'm sure know her work, but she does a lot with mapping game principles to non-game software. And so look her up, but not right now, and she has a lot of awesome stuff. T-shirt first development. So Guy Kawasaki said this a long time ago, of course you build the T-shirt before the product. So, but why is that? So I'm going to show you a few examples of T-shirts. Now, what do those have in common? They say something about the person wearing the shirt. And it's not always something you actually want to know. But the T-shirt, the best T-shirts, the T-shirts that people actually wear, say something about who they are. So the first question that we ask startups is, what does it say about your user that they are your user? Does it say anything at all? If it says nothing at all, that's not a good thing. So it should say something. It should be meaningful that they are your user or your reader or whatever it is. So first of all, have something to say. Okay, it's not just your logo on a shirt. Sometimes shirts are used to give people references. So who's this? What's that mean? Marathon. Okay, a few runners in here. Sherry Garcia, okay. Oh, it is. We are in San Francisco. I was going to say, more and more I'm getting like no responses, except my husband. Okay. I did this one in New Zealand, and absolutely not one single person knew what that was. The Office. And of course, if you have no creativity at all, you can always fall back to the sexual references, which are everywhere. So think this is Andrew Hyde's VCware. T-shirts for venture capitalists, so vcware.com. Yeah, women's T-shirt here today. So I noticed that when I got the email from Matt about coming here, I noticed that I actually was wearing a WordPress T-shirt at the time. So my first thought is, I looked down and I went, wow, that's really auspicious. And then I realized it's a man's T-shirt, and it was covered in horse poop, because that's what I use it for. So this one, although it's brown, although it is brown, but it's got the pink on it, so it's like a cupcake. So this will not go to the barn. And I hope by saying it was a cupcake, I didn't ruin it for the guys. But anyway. So what does being your user say about a person? So Easter eggs and other treats. I think a lot of you have seen this before. Chris Martin used to say, make tradefair.com on his hands, and at the concerts, the camera would zoom in so that everybody got it. Then he started going to just the two bars, and people asked him why he did that, and that's actually the equal sign, the logo for fair trade, and he said it's because he wants people to have this conversation all over the internet. So he's inspired curiosity. Sometimes it can happen accidentally, so this is one of our books. And that woman on the front, as with all the book covers, is not anything but stock photography. No, we did not spring for a photo shoot at O'Reilly. And of course, this girl is used everywhere. And readers just couldn't wait to point out that she's used in feminine hygiene products. So this happened, right after the book was released. And people are really, just going, oh man, I bet Tim O'Reilly's really pissed, because people, and it was like, are you kidding me? This is awesome, And then pretty soon people started trying to spot her, And also apparently look down her top, but that doesn't work. This was our first April Fool's joke, and we didn't realize how pissed off the entire scheme community, I think there's 17, all of them would be. And they started, and some of them actually threatened to, they were going to talk to Tim O'Reilly because they thought it would be good for the community to do that book. They were just really, really upset. And then the second year, we did this one. And again, we got a lot of upset people. And David was in on this one with me, so we both posted press releases at the same time. And don't say it. I think most of you probably already know by now, there is an Easter egg. Actually, there's 1.5 Easter eggs in this logo. But if you know what it is, don't say it, and everyone else will just have to chase FedEx trucks around until they see it. This is a great book about how to make things delightful for people, just in little graphical tricks. It's an absolutely awesome book, Smile in the Mind. So, tools for evangelism. Just about anything that you make, this is a very human reaction, right? Anything that people are passionate about, they're spending time on and probably potentially spending a lot of money on. And, we always think that our stuff's justified, but somebody else's is totally lame. So we have to find ways to explain it. Twitter is the most extreme example. And I resisted, and I resisted. And then, finally, these guys, who are awesome, came out with this little video of what's Twitter really about. And, this video made me think, oh, that's really good. It was all about how, it's about just, I used to think, I don't care what anybody else ate. And they said, yeah, but it's for your close family and friends. So I thought, well, I do care what, my daughter is 21, doesn't live with me anymore. It would be meaningful to just have the details of her, daily life. So I discussed this with her actually right before South by Southwest when she just turned 21, and she said, trust me, you really don't want to know what I'm doing. But I still kind of fantasized, so I made a fake Twitter scenario to think, this is what I'd see if she was on Twitter. love that. But in reality, I think she indicated it would be more like this. So, no, I'm just, no, I won't even look up the MySpace page of her boyfriends, just because I might accidentally see her. So anyway, no. But the point was, and again, Twitter being the extreme example, that no one can actually explain why it's useful. But everyone tries. But the low barrier to entry means it's really easy for people to say, just try it. Just absolutely try it. And a lot of things, though, it's going to take a little bit more effort. So if we're going to expect people to spend time doing whatever it is that we're helping them do, we need to help them justify that to others. So think about how you position that. Okay, third thing I'm going to ask you to do. This one's really, really painless. Look at someone straight in the eyes. Just find the person next to you. So if you're on the end, you have to go to the person right next to you. You don't have to touch them. Just stare right in their eyes. Just look at their eyes. Look at their eyes. We're just going to keep doing this until everyone just looks at someone's eyes. That's all. Just look. Okay, I'll stare at all of you one by one until we're done. Okay, so when you're looking someone right in the eyes, you are looking into the eyes of a predator. So we have our eyes, predators have their eyes in the front so we can really track our prey. Prey animals have their eyes out on the side where they can really, make sure they know what's going on. So what happens is, if all of you, this is a theory for why people have stage fright. This is one theory, is that the only time when most human beings would be in the situation that I'm in right now, where lots of predators are staring straight at me, is if I'm about to be eaten. So I'm a prey animal. So what's the advice people give for stage fright? Right. Visualize the audience naked, which open source audience, no. That doesn't really work. No offense. So what you should do, but it doesn't work because then you're just naked predators. You're still predators. So what I should do is visualize you as prey animals. So, except for then I heard about plushies and furries on CSI, where I hear about everything in pop culture. And but here's the point. They can actually fix stage fright by just giving you a drug that inhibits the physical reaction. Now, it's largely just a physical reaction. Stress totally shoots our performance on anything. So back to upgrades. If you're asking your users to upgrade, they're feeling stress. They're feeling, like little bunnies about to be eaten. And no one can perform well under that circumstance. You need to find ways to, this thing, the Stress Eraser, is so awesome because they've made slow breathing like a frickin' video game. And it's great because it actually, you do it long enough, swear, it starts feeling like a drug. So, but it helps you manage your fight or flight response. So if you want to be good at something, you have to manage that. Almost everyone performs better. Every single test done on mental and physical performance shows that if you are in a more relaxed state, you do better. And in some cases, you can be stressed enough where it's absolutely a waste of time, and you won't remember and learn anything. So we have to help our users by reducing their stress. We have to give them superpowers quickly. I'll skip through that one. But here's one of my favorite quotes from a company that has a lot of passionate users, which is Electric Rain. And this is their guiding philosophy, which is user must do something cool within 30 minutes. And that goes through everything they do. Their user manual, how they answer the phones, which they actually do with real humans, everything they do. User must do something cool within 30 minutes of starting that product. Make your users smarter. So let's look at what makes you smarter, actually smarter. So, yeah, we can do brain exercises, which most geeks, that's what we tend to think of. I'll just exercise my brain. I'll do, 10 million hours of advanced Sudoku. And it turns out that sadly, only actual physical aerobic exercise is the thing that makes the big, gigantic difference. So when I look at all the different forms of exercise that actually help make you think and do stuff better, like write code, it turns out that it's physical exercise that helps you write code better, way more than any amount of brain exercises that you can do. Not that they're completely invalid, but that absolutely nothing comes close to 20 minutes of aerobic exercise 3 or 4 times a week. But we have our geek tools, like the little Nike iPod thing to help us, and tracking It's a great thing. I'll skip this, but we have a lot of geek tools. Okay, fourth thing I'm going to ask you to do. This is the toughest one by far. You don't have to interact with anyone. You just have to stand up. And some of you, that's going to be a little tricky. You can hold your computer, though. Just pull it up. Stand up. Now, you don't have to stretch or anything, but you have to stand on one foot. So you guys haven't started the drinking yet, right? Okay. Stand on one foot. Okay. That's pretty good. Okay, you can sit down. If you did that every single day, you would get smarter. Because when you're trying to balance yourself, well, your brain is trying to keep you upright. But it's trying to keep you upright all the time when you're just walking around, when you're sitting at your desk. That's a tiny cognitive leak. It's a constant drain. So people who improve their balance better and better and better are smarter because there are fewer cognitive cycles in the background running to keep you upright. And I'm not talking about people who have bad balance. I'm just talking about actually most adults. I don't know, how many of you know Matt Webb, who's like one of the scariest smart people on the planet? So he said he was having issues with his balance. He actually went into a gym, and by the end, they have him standing on one of those balance balls. I don't recommend that. But that's what he does now. That's how far he's progressed. And he said it's changed all aspects of his life, improving his balance. But now they've proven that cognitive leak, and think about all the other cognitive leaks that you have, both in your own life and that you're giving to your users. What are the cognitive drains? You'll have to wait for the secret. Speed their knowledge acquisition. Oh, this is the one I already showed you. This is why upgrades are so painful for people. They don't want to go back to the suck threshold. So I'm going to skip this little part. The question is, do experts know more? Do chess grandmasters know more? It turns out they know a lot more patterns. And that patterns are what really represents experts, more than just lots of extra bits of knowledge. They can recognize patterns that are meaningful. So learn to do knowledge acquisition and representation. So if we want to actually speed up the process of helping someone get up a hard curve fast, this guy, who some of you may know, he was a big AI programmer from way back when, he did something that was completely unheard of. He decided to make a computer program about Go, the game of Go. Didn't actually play the game of Go, so he interviewed top experts to figure out what the rules were so he could represent them in software. But in the process became, I think, like a 5th degree black belt in the game in a ridiculously short period of time, and no one had ever done that before. So by actually trying to extract and represent knowledge from experts and represent it in software, he himself became an expert faster than anyone ever had. So think about patterns. Best practices, not motivating. That's not motivating for people. People want a kick. I don't mean you call it this. But people want patterns for being really good at something, not best practices. They want to be good. Make your product or docs reflect their feeling. A lot of people actually do put in fairly decent help and FAQs, but there's a huge problem with help and FAQs. Most of them are written for this guy, a guy who's like, uses a tablet PC. He's what really, and I was kind of horrified to find out how much the unboxing movement, how many of you know about the unboxing? Yeah, and there's Flickr groups, and there's groups where people teach each other how to do more seductive unboxing sequences, and it really is just photographs of people step by step, like opening the box their computer came in. Over time. It's amazing. So, and again, electric rain, this is and this could just be a metaphor, even if it is just in bits. It's that metaphor, it's the experience of getting, a present. It should feel like downloading your software is a special gift. So if you're saying things like, well, it's not that hard to do the download, right? Think about how to change that into something more interesting and exciting. And finally, inspire first-person language. So this is a very unofficial, unscientific study that was done to see if in testimonials and reviews, if end users used first-person language, something I talked about at the very beginning, if they talked about themselves, was that a reflection of a more successful product than a competitor where the reviews were equal in terms of 5 stars or whatever it was, but the reviews were talking about the product or the company, not the actual user. So we want to hear people say, well, I did this, and I tried this, and as a result, this is what I'm able to do. I mean, that's the kind of language that you actually want. And it could be just for readers of your blog. You want people to walk away. So when you write something or create something, look at it and say, how does this help the person kick ass? Now, it might help them kick ass just because it was really obscure and snarky and they felt a little bit smart for reading it. That's okay, risky, but that's okay. That could still work. That's still a benefit. But just ask the question. How does this thing help that person kick ass? And if my reader/user was to walk away and write something using first-person language, what would they say? What do you really want them to talk about? And as long as you're still focusing on what you do and how they feel about you, that's not a predictor of success. And we all know there are tons of companies that have great products. So I just checked out a few sites this morning. So we'll just do a little tiny critique. It's actually not bad. But what do you think about that paragraph? First, my O'Reilly, I'm not a great writer. My O'Reilly editor would say, well, you started with the cliche, and that's the best part. So, I mean, state of the art as opposed to what? But it's still focusing on not the user. There's nothing in there that says this, it's like, well, nice to be you. And Liz and Jane mentioned how someone had said in the media uploader thing that one of the responses was, wow, this feature really tried hard to impress me. I don't need to be impressed. I need it to work. So this is all about you. However, this stuff down at the bottom was actually pretty good. I mean, this almost cancels out because it's very, it's just got these easy steps. Yes, you can do that. Now it still says our famous 5-minute installation. I don't know why it has to be famous, but it's kind of cool. Famous because it's good? I don't know. But anyway, yeah. So, think about those pages and what they actually say. Now, actually, I was just looking at this about page, and that's actually not bad. This is pretty cool. I like that. That totally worked. That's about me. That's completely about me. So I like that. Kind of fell down here. You don't have to sell me on how it's cool, right? So in the movie business, they'll say, show, don't tell, right? You don't want your character sitting there explaining everything. You want it to just be a natural artifact of what's there. So when I look at copy that's talking about a product, I want to see what it means to me, not how cool you think it is, but what does it mean to me? And the fact that you think it's cool just doesn't mean that much. Now, if another developer said it was cool, that would be great. That would be worth a lot. So a quote from another end user would be awesome. But don't say the features you'll love. Now, more stuff, though, on that page was really good. So remember, it's about giving users a higher resolution experience, and how can we make that happen from the very beginning, bootstrapping them in, getting them past the suck threshold, and because I do this to everyone, now it's Matt's turn. For example, people who are really into wine, they claim that they have this high-resolution wine experience, which I still think is bullshit, even though now I'm actually living in wine country. But this is what they say they experience. That's high resolution. This is low resolution. So that is a 1-bit wine experience. And that's one of the reasons we all love Gary Vaynerchuk, is because he's making it really fun to have a high-resolution experience without all the sideways foo-foo stuff. So again, think about what you can help users do, not what you can do. And this is the last thing I'm going to ask you to do. I had to put that in because it was so adorable. All right, this is it, and then you can leave. Take your hand, either hand. Okay, so atoms are not old school. We have other senses, and this is a really powerful one. So think about ways that you can use this. So what I want you to do is just reach over and just touch the person on the shoulder, on the arm, on their sleeve, right? Just touch them. Excellent. Well, okay, you don't have to fondle them or anything. Just touch. Excellent. Okay, great. Thank you all for giving me all this extra time. Go help your users kick some ass.